Okie dokie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kathy, and today I will be sharing with you this. And what this is a baby shower invitation. And I'm going to be sharing the creative process from start to finish. And you will understand what I mean once we get on with the rest of the presentation. So here we go. So this is a baby shower invitation for my daughter. She's expecting, and her little sister is kind of heading up the project. But what happened is she sent me this right here. She sent me this, and she said, "This is what I want to do. This is the invitation that we want to create." And it's from a site called Green Envelope. So I'm going to click on this, and is it going to? Yes, it opens in a new tab. Okay, I'm going to click on this, and it brings you here to your designs. I did sign up to kind of like see what it was, but then I thought to myself, I'm a web developer. I'm a designer. I know how to create this, and I kind of DIY'd it. So what comes next is, again, the process from start to finish of how I created the invitation. So here we go. Okay, so the inspiration, got it from Green Envelope. My daughter sent me a screenshot. This is a screenshot. I said, okay, cool, we can do that. So the first thing that I did is I brought this color in, this image in, and I made the color palette for it. Okay, so I changed up some things. It's not exactly like this. Again, I put my own spin on it. It's not the same fonts. It's not really the same anything, but it's kind of like a space theme. And that's what we were going for. Okay. So first, the first thing that I did is I made the color palette. I took this and I created some bubbles. Some color bubbles is what I call them. Let me get out of prototype mode. Okay, I created some bubbles for colors. Oh, don't want to put in that frame. No. Okay. So I created these little bubbles, these little circles, and then I hit Command D on my keyboard to make another one, and then 1, 2, 3. So here we go. Okay, so the first thing that I did is I selected this, and then I pressed I on the keyboard for my color dropper, and I picked I zoomed in, and I picked kind of like this lighter gray back here for the card, right? Okay. The second thing I did is I clicked this one, then my eyedropper, and then I picked a color. And then I took this color. So actually, Command Z, I picked this color, and then I went to the dropper over here, or the color selection, and I think I just dragged it all the way over here, not quite to black, but something like this. Okay, did that, and then I picked one of the colors in the stars. I think it was a more yellowy one, yellowy kind of color. Maybe this one. Okay. So basically that's kind of how I created the color palette. I got this screenshot from my phone, I imported it into my Mac, brought it into Figma, and then I created a color palette. The actual color palette is right over here, the one that I ended up using. Okay. So that's kind of what I did with the screenshot. The next thing that I did is I said, okay, I scanned my memory. That's what I did, y'all. Scanned my memory. What I mean by that is I've been using Google Fonts, and I've been into typography for a very, very long time. I love typography because I like to read, I like to write, and typography is an art all on its own. You know, fonts and creating them and how they're made and the lines and the way they're slanted, everything. It's an art all on its own. But anyway, the first thing I did is I scanned my memory bank and I said, what font kind of looks like this? And to me, a font that looks like that is the one that I chose, which is called Josephine Sands. and it is a font, a Google font. So Google Fonts, here we go. That's the first thing that I did. So after I looked up the colors and did the color palette, I chose the fonts that I was going to use. Now again, these fonts are not exactly the same, and there's actually a Google font that looks a little bit more similar to this. It's called Sacramento, I think. Let me see. Sacramento. Yeah. And it probably would have been a little bit closer design-wise to this lettering. But I didn't want to do it because I don't know. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to use Sacramento. I feel like it's used a lot in a lot of different places. And it's a nice font. I do love it. But I didn't want to use it for this. So instead, I searched and searched. And this is another great resource when you're looking for typography. And actually, I like it a little bit better than Google Fonts. Not going to lie. The user interface is so clean and nice, and it just has so many fonts. Anyways, so I ended up using a font called Aplenty. That's what I ended up using. I searched for it in here, and Aplenty, used it. And when you go to the font here in CDN Fonts, you can either copy the link, you can import it, you can download the font to your machine locally, so you have it locally. And that's kind of what I did, or not kind of, that is what I did here in Figma. So one of the things, if you're not familiar with Figma, or you are familiar with it, but you just haven't learned everything there is possibly to learn about it, which unless you're the creator of it, I don't think any of us will ever learn every single thing because it's always evolving. But that's neither here nor there. But one of the things that you can do in Figma is if you like a font, let's say you go here, back to here, and then you go here, and then you say, okay, I like that font. Okay, let's go back home because this was kind of cute, right? I'm like, ooh, I like this font. What you can do is you can download it to your machine. And when you download it to your machine, why is that still there? Don't know. When you download it to your machine and you install it, oh my goodness. Sorry guys, I'm waiting for this little square to go away. Close that. Okay. When you install a font locally on your machine, you go, you take it, you double click, and you install it. Okay. So you install these fonts and it's called Queria, right? So in Figma, you can press T on your keyboard to get the type tool and you click on the space and the cursor shows up and I'm going to type in Queria. I don't think that's how it was. Queria? Okay, I'm going to type that in. And then I'm going to come and look over for it. I'm going to type Q, Queria. Is that how it was spelled? Yep, that is how it's spelled. But you're like, why is it not showing up in here? Because I downloaded and I installed it. Number one, the first thing you want to do is come over here to the upper left and you want to go down here to help and account. And then you want to go down here to open font settings. Okay, click on that. And when you click on open font settings, it will bring you to this little thing and it tells you everything that you need to know. And then you come down here to the fonts and it says local fonts are enabled. You have to enable them. I already enabled it. That's why enable libraries for all files in your drafts. That is why I have it. So I have 934 fonts available. But the thing is, in order for that font to show up, I have to close out of the file that I was in and then go back into the file. I'm not sure why. Figma. Maybe that's something you need to look into for it to auto refresh a little faster. But now if I click on here and I go back into the location, it should show up. There we go. And it does. So now we have that font that we downloaded onto our machine available in Figma because we have local fonts enabled. If you go and you type in, if you just Google Figma local fonts, it should take you here to the help center, and I'll put this in the list also. But it tells you how to set it up and everything, and that way you can go to the font, or you can go to Adobe Fonts, or you can go to any font place that you like, and you can have fonts in your Figma to design as you wish. But anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent. Also up here in this file, I have links. Copy that, put that there. Control C, and then I'm going to delete, and I'm going to say Figma local fonts how to. Okay, and I'm going to change that back to Josephine Sands to match the rest, because we couldn't leave it the way that it was. Not as designers, right? It has to match. Okay, I'm going to turn that into a link, copy, paste, and there we go. Okay, so back to the creative process. Okay, so first I did was colors. Second thing I did was fonts. And the next thing that I did, once I had my fonts, I typed them all out, I started thinking, okay, how am I going to get these little stars on here? So two commonly used design resources by myself, I commonly use these design resources. So number one is transparent textures. Okay. For the background of this invitation, it has kind of like a texture. You can see it's more like stucco, which I think they do have, but I ended up choosing this one, clean gray paper. Let's see if they have stucco. I think they do have one. Yeah, they do. So, I could have used something like this, but it was too small for me. But the way that I chose is because, again, I use transparent textures quite a bit, is I came over here and I copied this color right here. Okay, copied that color. I went over here to transparent textures, and you can put the color in. Okay, so then you have kind of like a realistic representation of what that color is going to look like with that, kind of background. Okay, so transparent textures, and what you can do is you can either create a big wallpaper, right? You can create a big wallpaper and download it at your size, your choice of size, or you can download the PNG, and then you can drag it in here into Figma, and then you can see, you can duplicate it, you can create masks, you can do all sorts of things, okay? But we're not going to do that. But transparent textures, that's the other thing that I went to for the texture of the background. So the next thing that I did is I said, okay, how am I going to get these squiggly lines in here? Now this is a tool that's super cool. It's called Adobe Capture, and you get it on your phone. So I use it on my phone. I've never used it on the desktop version. I don't think that they have it on the desktop version. I don't think they have a desktop version for this. I'm not sure, but I use it on my phone. And basically what you can do is you can take images and you can turn them into vector graphics. Okay? You can turn them into vector graphics, you can turn them into patterns, you can identify types. Like, it's so many different things that you can do with this app. But again, I use it on my phone. It's called Adobe Capture, and I don't think it gets enough exposure. It's like if you're a creative person, you can do so many things with it. But anyway, what I did is I ended up taking this screenshot, the same screenshot that I have on my phone, and I uploaded it into Adobe Capture, and I turned it into this image right here. And you can export it as SVG, you can export it as a PNG, you can export it all different types of ways, okay? So right now this is in a frame, but you can see here that it has a kabillion pieces in here, okay? So what I ended up doing, because all I really wanted was these zigzags and these, you know, kind of little jaggedy lines. But what you can do with Adobe Capture is once you convert a flat JPEG or a PNG image into a vector graphic, you can import it here into Figma, right? And then it's basically a vector graphic. So I can sit here and I can delete what I don't want. So if I don't want this, I can take it out of the frame, which is what I ended up doing. I ended up taking it out of this frame. Where is that frame? It's still in the frame. Ungroup. Okay, that's how you take it out of the frame. Sorry, forgot. Okay, so what I ended up doing is I took it out of the frame, and it's going to delete that. You can tell that Figma's going to delete something because it's outlined in that bright blue. So I'm just going to kind of do this. And that's basically what I did. You know, went piece by piece and carefully deleted what I didn't want and kept what I did. Okay, so that's how I got the outline of that. The next thing I did, and you can see that here, there's the outline, ungroup. You can see this is the outline, cleaned it up a little bit, but it's, you know, its own piece. Then this is the actual transparent texture that I did use, which was called, it wasn't stucco, I think it was clean gray paper. Gray, yeah, this one. This is the one that I ended up using. But I imported it here into Figma, and I created a mask in this shape of the invitation, okay? So I'm going to Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, okay? So this is what I wanted my invitation background to look like. Then I said, okay, the stars. Oh my, how am I going to get these stars? Okay. This is something that I think is so super cool, okay? And it's a recent discovery. That's why I'm like so excited about it. You can come here to the font and thefont.com, and you can, in the dingbats section over here, these are fonts. So let's say, for example, that I want to use the earth sign, right? Number one, I always, when I come here on thefont.com, I always check these and I make sure that they're 100% free or free for personal use. I do donate or I do purchase fonts when they are, you know, purchase when they're labeled purchase for commercial use. If I'm going to be making money off of something that I'm using on here, I'm going to either donate or I'm going to buy the font that I'm looking at. But when it's for personal use or for demos or, you know, training sessions like this, I just make sure they're either 100% free or they say free for personal use. So just for example, I'm going to download this font, Planets by Woodcutter, okay? Download. And then you come here and you download it. Show in Finder. I'm going to download that. And I'm going to double click on it. And then I'm going to install this font. Okay. So I install that font. I'm going to actually delete these. Okay, this is the bling. No, not that. Okay. So once I download that font and it is installed, remember that we can go back to Figma I'm going to close this for now. We can go back to Figma, and once I either, let's just do a hard refresh, Command Shift R, or Command R, Command R, there we go. Command R, nope. Okay. If I do a refresh in here, it should do the same thing. It should be able to, you know, upload that font or find the font in the library, in the font library, now that I refreshed. If it's not there, then again, you just got to close out of the file and then go back in. So the one that I actually use is called Space, but the one that we just downloaded is called Planets, okay? So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to type in I'm going to use my text tool, and I'm going to click, and then I'm going to type in a letter A, okay? And for purposes of this, I'm going to make this really big, or bigger, so that we can see. And I'm going to put it over here, and then I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to say, okay, let me click into this and see what this says. And in the fonts, it gives you this little key. So if you want this little, let's pick this one, this planet right here. If you want this little planet, then you're going to have to type in a capital Y, okay? And then the key is down. So basically this is the key for which graphical font you want to use. So if I come in here and I type in a capital Y, and then I come over here, it's selected, and I come over here to my fonts list, I'm going to look for planets. Look, there it is. It is in there. Worked with a hard refresh. So what is cool about Figma is that you can take these and you can turn them into vector graphics. And by that, I mean vector graphics and fonts are two different things. But if you want to turn this into a vector graphic to where you can change the colors, you can change all that stuff, you can. And the way that I do this is I right click on this and I choose flatten. Now this is a vector graphic, and you can do whatever you want with it. So I'm going to actually double click on it, and I'm going to click on this one only. Let me click out of all of them. Oh, double click. Let me click on that one. And you can click on an individual one. You can. Okay, let's see. Yeah, you can click on an individual one, and you can change whatever colors you want. So if I want to change that color, I can do it, change it to that, and I'm going to hit escape. And then over here, I'm going to change it to black. You can change it to basically whatever color you want, but you just have to you gotta kind of, you know, mess around with it a little bit, figure it out. But basically, yeah, you can do all sorts of things with these fonts. You can turn them into whatever it is that you'd like to turn them into. But yeah, so basically that's what I did with this, with the stars. That is how I got these stars, okay? Instead of using planets, I used dingbats, space dingbats. So the one that I used actually is called Space. Type that in. And I used space, and this is the linked attribution. It is also in here in the links list. So, you know, donate if you can to the creator of that font. But it's called Space. So I used this one. And then what I did is I kind of looked through here and I said, ooh, S. Let me type in a S. So I came over here and I typed in an S, and I got this little thing right here. So what I did is I turned this into a vector by right-clicking. Sometimes I choose outline stroke. I usually do that when it's a font and I want to turn it into a vector. And since technically this is a font, I could have done that. So outline stroke. And now, yeah, it's a vector too. So if I come over here and let me escape, I'm going to change the fill color to, okay, double click. Okay, I'm going to change the fill color to red. And then if you double click on just one thing, or select just one thing like that, I can now change that to that color. And then if I go to V and close this, I can pick this one. Oh, let me see something. No, it's not. Okay, sorry. Got sidetracked. But again, you can change the colors, you can do stuff, and that's what I ended up doing. So I ended up creating this from the little pieces, the little stars, okay? Because again, you can come in here and you can delete what you don't need, you can change the colors, but it does take a little bit of finagling. Finagling? Not sure. But this is what you can do. And basically you can just, kind of put it where you want and reshape it. You can turn it, you can make it bigger. You can do all sorts of things. Like Figma is just an awesome tool for illustrations and things like that. But that's basically how I created the stars. And the big stars here, really all I did with those is, I think I did take, or did I? No, I created this with the stars tool, okay? So what I did here for these is I kind of just created like a shape, weird little shaped star, I don't know. Something like that, and then I kind of rounded the corners a little bit. And then you can also do this, you can also flatten that, and you can move the star around. You zoom in, you can make this side longer, you can select this and make this one longer, that, and then you can just, however you feel you get that look that you want, you can do that. So that's kind of how I created the stars, and then I already showed you how I created those. This little thing right here, I got the planet. I got the planet from one of these dingbats as well, one of these space. So T, let's type in a T. Okay, and D, let's type in an A. There's that. Did I get it from there? No, I don't know which one I got it from. But I got it from one of these. Was it this one? K. Maybe it was K. Yeah. So I got the planet from one of these, and the planet, I ended up just basically doing this right here. So I created the little planet, I got the little planet, and then I used my type tool, and I'm going to type in an F, but I'm going to change this to Hosting Sands. Okay, nope, and it's not going to let me because it was Hosting Sands, and then I just typed in RSVP. Okay, and then again, what I did was I made the text a little bit smaller. Okay, like that. I sized it. And I changed the font weight to medium, or maybe it was bold. Yeah, I think it was bold. And then I made it even a little smaller than that, right? 24. And then I just did outline stroke and E. And then I repeated it, or actually, I didn't do that. I typed in each letter individually. But you can go in here and do this. And then I just placed the letters, right? So I just rotated them until they were placed like this. And this, all these are, is the line tool. And then once you have all your letters together, you can put them all together and then you can flatten the image. And then you can go back in there and change the colors like the way I was showing you before. So that's how I made that, okay? So now that's a graphic. So all in all, I got the patterns, I got the illustration, I got the colors from the color palette, I got the typography, and I said, okay, this is what I want it to look like. This is my product end goal. This is going to be a button where they can RSVP. And my idea for this was to use Google Forms, which I did end up doing. So it's right here. I'm not going to click on it because it has actual data on their guests' information. But basically anyone, you have a Google account, you can come in here and you can create a form. And then when you create a form, you have different options. So I'm going to say invitation, okay? And then I'm going to say, will you make it? Can you make it? Okay, and yes, no, and maybe. And then once this is done, you can go over here to settings. Sorry, not settings. You can go to send, and then it gives you an option how you want to send this invitation. You can either send it via email, and then you can collect people's emails, or you can send it as a link. You can shorten the URL. Look at that. Or you can embed it in your website. So I chose this option. Okay. That's the form, Google Forms. So we have Figma, we have Google Forms, and then what I ended up doing is, since I created my design here in Figma and I know what I wanted my end product to look like, oh, sorry, the form. The other thing with the form is you can go to forms and you go back here to questions. And then when you come here, I think it's here, no, where is it? Settings, response, oh no, sorry. Okay, so in Google Forms, they have a new feature where you can design, you can customize the theme. So right here, when you customize the theme, you can customize the header and you can choose an image. So you can choose pre-populated images, photos, no photos, it'll connect to your Google Photos, but I don't have any Google Photos there. Or you can choose to upload. So that is what this right here is, the banner image. And the way that I kind of figured out the size for it is I did photos or themes and I picked a size and then I inserted it. And then if you've watched any of my other videos, you know I'm a big fan of the inspector. You can inspect anything, right? So basically I just inspected this and I said it's 772 pixels approximately by 194. Okay? So I did this and I created it like this. So I just took the pieces from here and I duplicated them and put them in the banner and the little RSVP. So now this banner that I have over here on my forms is right there. So that's how I created the form. And now we can move on to the actual site, but I'm going to stop here. because this video is very long. It's going to take a long time to upload. Thank you for watching. I'll be back with part 2 on how I coded this whole thing.